Welcome back. Over 12 million South Africans live below the average poverty line. That's as millions depend on social grants, while even more households don't have an income at all. Poverty has also been identified as a pandemic by academics and social activists. So this morning we're asking what can be done to improve the lives of South Africans. We're joined by Dr. Pulane Molokwane, who is a commissioner at the National Planning Commission. Dr. Molokwane, thanks very much indeed for coming onto the program. It's a discussion we've had many, many times before, isn't it? The issues around the stats that Stats SA publishes every year when it updates its national poverty line numbers. And those numbers are so incredibly scary when we think about just how little millions of South Africans have to live on every single month. Dr. Molokwane, are you there? Are you able to hear us?
I can hear you, Michelle. You are very low.
Very low.
I'm not sure if it's my computer here.
All right, let me try and ask our team to boost the sound in your ear, the sound on your side, and I'll repeat the question in the meantime. The numbers that Statistics South Africa releases every year of just how little South Africans have to live on every month. We're talking about the food poverty line here, the lower bound poverty line, and of course the upper bound poverty line. The lowest of those numbers, 663 Rand a month.
Yes, Michelle. It's very sad that we from 2012 to date, we have not made any progress in improving on that percentage. When the National Planning Commission, the first one, drafted the NDP, we were sitting at below 40% of those that are living below the poverty line. Unfortunately, today we are sitting at 40 plus, which is a regression. Yeah, that's the status quo. And there's just so many reasons why we are there. And COVID also did its thing. But also, I believe as a nation, we have not been properly coordinated. The planning system within our state has not been properly aligned. The budgeting processes have not been aligned to our planning systems, and therefore we tend to spend the little resource that we have haphazardly.
Yeah.
Of course, there has been a lot of money that has been spent and did not yield much more results. It is on that basis, as the National Planning Commission, we believe that we need a capable, ethical, professional state. And I also would like to add that we also need the same from the private sector.
Yeah.
Because all malfeasance that we've had did not just happen in the state or in government.
I want to get to the issue of corruption in just a moment, Dr. Molokwane, but I want to talk more about these figures that we see, you know, because the household food basket has increased so dramatically over the past year. And yet, those numbers that I've just outlined from the food poverty line, the upper and lower bound poverty lines as well, it doesn't seem that people have more money to keep up with this increase in the price of food.
And the state also cannot continue to do that because it becomes a burden to the state. I believe as a state, as the government, we need to create a conducive environment for the economy to grow. We need to make sure that we do develop and build the right infrastructure that will boost the economy, get that water where it's supposed to go, and make the electricity system and the energy system in this country functional so that business can operate. We all know what the recent bouts of load shedding have done to most businesses. It simply means the condition will just be dire. But if we can only fix this aspect. And the National Planning Commission issued a paper, an advisory note in the past few months on quicker ways of how we can resuscitate and get our energy system working quicker so that we can resuscitate this struggling economy.
Yeah. I mean, we think about the National Development Plan, and there are a number of goals in that plan, but part of it, as it pertains to our discussion this morning, is a reduction in these numbers, right? A reduction in the number of people that we see living below the poverty line. I mean, as it stands, there are so many organizations that have done research on this issue, but there's one economic justice group in Pietermaritzburg that says 30 million people, over 30 million people in South Africa live below this upper bound poverty line of just over 1,300 Rand a month. We're obviously no way near what the NDP sets out we should have achieved by 2030, right? It's going to be 2023 next year. Instead, those numbers are just getting worse and worse.
We have not done well as a country to achieve our goals that we need to admit, and our priorities have since suffered. But we have 8 years, and I believe that with a course correction or stock of what needs to change and what we have not done right as the NPC, we are able to actually change the trajectory in the next 8 years. Yes, we may necessarily not achieve all our priorities, but we can still do something in the next 8 years.
So what do you believe those key things should be in 8 short years?
In 8 short years, I believe for starters, we need to get all South Africans, a civil society, government, and the private sector working together. More private public partnerships in our infrastructure, because the state cannot really do it on its own. More importantly, I think, and we believe as the National Planning Commission, that with now the measures in place in the form of a professionalization of public service framework, that will make sure that we recruit based on meritocracy and not on any other thing, that the right people will occupy the right positions, that we will have that line that has been blurry between the political and the administration be dealt with, and then we'll be able to function. Yes, it's probably shorter than what we had planned, but it's not all gloom and doom. I think we have also done better in, for instance, our health system. You know, the stats are showing that we have done much better. Yes, we have not managed to make a lot of people, or majority of South Africans, feed themselves properly. We can't even give them the grant that is at least at 663. But we will grow the economy, and we must strive towards working at growing that economy.
I hope to speak to you, Dr. Molokwane, in, shall we say, every year. We'll touch base and see how we're doing over the next 8 short years, how much progress is being made. Certainly, the 12 million South Africans that I talked about at the start of our conversation need just that. They are living well below the average poverty line. Dr. Pulane Molokwane is the Commissioner at the National Planning Commission, as we continue to track the economic turndown in South Africa and, of course, the impact it's having on millions of poor South Africans.